The Backdoor GAA Podcast for 2023 is now brought to you by Steede Motor Group. For your personalised vehicle shopping experience, visit steedemotorgroup.ie. We are now delighted to announce our second sponsor of the podcast. Harper Finlay are a professional service recruitment company operating nationwide and are dedicated to helping people find their dream job. The Backdoor GAA Podcast for 2023 is now brought to you by Steede Motor Group. For your personalised vehicle shopping experience, visit steedemotorgroup.ie.
So delighted now to be joined by two Galway former hurlers in Alan Kerins and Claregalway, just to look ahead to Galway's game against Wexford, which is hard to believe it's approaching already. 22nd of April, Galway will host Wexford in Pearse Stadium and get their Leinster Championship campaign underway for 2023. Alan, coming to you first, what's it like this period now as a player a week before Championship is approaching?
Yeah, I suppose as a player, they all want to be playing games, and there's been a couple of weeks now without games for Galway, which gives them a good chance, I suppose, to get a block of work done and maybe get the injuries right and get people back. But you're always itching for Championship, and that's where you want to be playing. And yeah, there's to be a fierce buzz, I'd say, a train, I'd imagine, and excitement about, starting into another Leinster and All-Ireland series. So massive excitement, and I suppose competition as well then for places, and you're trying to nail your place down as well, and impress management, and do your prep work. So yeah, it's massive excitement. Always that's where you want to be, is Championship, and playing games as well. And it's like back in our time, we didn't start till we did 2 or 3 games, All-Ireland quarter-final, semi-final. We got there, we knocked out at that stage, or lucky enough to get to a couple of finals. But they've games now, which is great, and same with the minors. It's great to see them getting games as well in the Leinster Championship. So as a player, all you want to do is play games.
Would you still get a bit nervous around this period, Alan, or is it just pure excitement?
As a former player, as a player?
As a player.
As a player? No, I suppose it depends on what age you are as well, and your experience level. But I think, no, it'll be more focused on getting yourself right. Yes, the week coming up, maybe 3 or 4 days coming up to the game, if you're starting, you would start to be getting a little bit nervous. Definitely, if you're not getting nervous, there's something wrong with you, because that means your adrenaline's going, you're getting ready to play. But not this area. No, I'm just pure looking forward to it, trying to enjoy your hurling, trying to get your focus right, your body right, your technical skills right, your physical conditioning and rest and recovery right. And it'll be just total focus on maximizing your potential and how to get the best out of yourself and preparing as best you can, mentally, physically, emotionally, every way. But the nerves, for me, every player is different, but for me, the nerves wouldn't really kick in until the Thursday, Friday. Not nerves, but just kind of, you're getting set for it, and you're getting a little bit, you're thinking about a lot more, and maybe the morning of the game, then you have the butterflies and stuff like that. But every player is different, so I think every player treats their preparation and gets up for games differently, and that's trial and error for players. They need to work out what works best for them in their own prep, and then stick to that process.
How were you around this period, Craig?
Yeah, like Alan said, it'll be, I suppose, all the hard work is done, really. You're looking back in the last 4 or 5 months or 6 months, probably end of October, start of November, and looking back at them long evenings in Lough George, and you're running in the dark, and to get to where you are now, your body's probably in a really, really good position, and just ready for Championship. And I suppose the buzz leading up to it as well, it's been good through the league, and it's probably get decent crowds at league, but it's nothing like a Championship, especially at home in Pearse Stadium and first round of the Championship.
You're just on mute there, Craig.
It'll be just a lot of excitement, I suppose. I suppose with the nervous side of things, the new players had to be thereabouts as well, and wondering whether they'll be on the team, and the team is announced tonight or tomorrow night, whenever it'll be. There'll be a lot of nerves there, I suppose, wondering if they'll make it or not. And the season campaigners, the lads that are around for a while, I'd say it'll be just more excitement and focusedness, really, for the likes of them. But for the young lads that are coming through there, and there is a few there, there's 1 or 2 positions up for grabs, and I'm sure they'll be nervous all week, wondering whether they made it or not. But I'd say more excitement than anything, really.
And just with that, Galway obviously had a break after the league. With that, like, is it flat out like Galway have been going now? Would you feel, Craig, like we need a break, say, between the league and this round robin series? Is it almost like you're nearly starting again with this heavy bulk of training?
I'm sure they probably have blocks done really, like, you know, and they probably knew leading up to the last 2 weeks, the last game against Westmeath, that they weren't going to make the league final. So they probably have a separate block done where they probably worked hard for the week or two after the Westmeath game and probably eased into this week. I know they had a challenge game there on Monday night, so that probably was the last strong session they put in. It'll be an easier week this week, and I'm sure it's just fine tuning for a lot of lads. Some lads then were only coming back from injury, one or two of their main lads. So I'm not sure. I haven't heard too much insight into how they're going or how certain lads are, but I'm sure there's probably some lads that are just fine tuning as all. Like, a lot of lads have played a lot of league time, so they probably weren't going as hard for the last 2 or 3 weeks. But a lot of the young lads, like, I suppose they probably worked in them a lot over the last 2 or 3 weeks, and there is a lot of young lads in the panel, a lot of new faces over the last 2 or 3 years, so they've probably been getting extra prep over the last 2 or 3 weeks. And I suppose, like, in the first round championship against Wexford at home, Pierce Stadium, I suppose you'd be looking for a lot of experienced lads to be standing up over the last 2 or 3 weeks and having a word in the younger lads' ears as well. So it's probably a bit of that to it as well.
With this as well, there's almost nearly a competitive edge, Alan. You could say even between these A or B games now, you have, obviously, if they're having these A or B games, there's going to be players on the B team who are going to want to be pushing into the starting 15, and they're driving it on, and they're trying to push these players who are probably, in all likelihood, thinking they're going to start.
Oh yeah, I think the A versus B games are vital over the last number of weeks, along with the number of challenge matches to keep that match sharpness, I suppose, and that hurling edge and that hurling sharpness. But yeah, A versus B is always interesting. It depends what way they pick it, whether they mix them up or something. You'll nearly always know leading into it whether they'll start the strong A against the weaker B, or not the weaker B, but the guys who are challenging for positions. And and Kilkenny are famous for it. Their A versus B games were harder than championship matches, and that's why they were so successful back in my time in the mid noughties there. But you need your A versus B games to be really, really competitive, really, really intense, and really, really, people fighting for their jerseys. Everyone needs to be under pressure. Once you get complacent, that's when you're in trouble as a player. So you need your B team really pushing you to new standards and challenging you and making you uncomfortable. Because when you're uncomfortable, that's when you progress. That's when you're a really good, vibrant, competitive panel with depth. And I suppose that's one thing Henry, after last year, I suppose, was one of his big, goals this year, was to increase the depth of that panel, and particularly impact subs, which maybe they were a little bit short last year against Limerick, and Limerick's bench made a huge difference in those last few moments in the All-Ireland semi-final. So and that was obvious probably during the league, where he was trying to, as Greg said, blood a lot of younger players and get them up to the standard that's required for championship. Because there is a huge difference between championship, or between even playing senior club hurling and then league, and then championship is a massive step up in pace and intensity. So you need those A and B versus A versus B games, to be full-blooded. And no prisoners taken. And you wouldn't want to either. You want lads to fleece you, and if you're a forward, or you want lads to really, test you, and because otherwise, if you stay stagnant, you're going nowhere.
What was your own experience of A versus B games, Craig, when you're involved with Galway?
Yeah, they were very competitive. Like, I suppose back a few years ago, but especially in 17, they're like there's probably like, you could probably say that in 2017, up until that Ireland semi-final, our A and B games were more competitive than our championship games, and that was the way it was, and the way it had to be. And Micheál had spoke a lot about it, that number 30 is just as important as number 2, and that you have to make it feel like that in A and B games. And as Alan said, A and B games, probably if there were another the match Monday, but maybe to play the game on Saturday, you'd know where you stand in, really, and bar 1 or 2 positions that have a fair idea of the team. And the B team then would obviously be the team that'd be the subs, and they'd be trying to they'll be trying to get their position or get their place as well, like, you know. And the other side of that then as well is it's the way things are gone in inter-county. The competitiveness for making a sub is nearly as competitive as making the team now. You know, there's a panel probably 34, 36 players, and 36 are playing for their jersey as well, and that's gone so competitive. So them games are massive now. And 17, 18 they were, the A and B games were, as I said to you, they were as competitive until we got to the semi-finals. So
From your own experience in that period, Craig, like you could obviously relate to some players now who are trying to hunt down to break into this starting 15. But if you're not making that starting 15, it's obviously all about the panel around this period. But can there be an element of frustration when we're not getting in there?
Massive amount of frustration. Like, and I suppose it's very easy to take that frustration out in a bad way, but like you have to really use it. And if you don't make the starting 15 for Sunday, that when you get your chance and choose the night again, it's 15v15 or A versus B, that you're ready to rock. Like, or if you do make an impact when you come on, that you're ready to rock. And like, you have to be in the same mindset as the lads that are starting. But no, like, and I think the big thing really, like, and it's as Alan mentioned there, back at, like, with Limerick last year in their Ireland semi-final, the subs are so vital now. Like, they're nearly as vital as was the case in 2017. The impact Jason Flynn and Niall Burke made for us, like that. You just have to be keyed in and clued in as just as much as, like, you might be number 24 in your back, but you might have a bigger part to play than some that might be playing for 50 minutes or 55 minutes. So I think it's massive now, and like, the game has evolved so much that the 5 subs that come on are equally as important as the starting 15, and they'll have a bigger role to play. Like, so it's a 20-man game, and I know people are preaching that for the last 5 or 6 years, but the proof is in the pudding. And the pudding is Limerick, you know, and they have those 20 players, and it's more than the league final last weekend. Like, they have another 5 players all of a sudden just coming up along, and like, you can see the lads they can leave off. They're leaving off 3 all-stars and still go on and win, and that's what Henry's aiming to do. And as Alan mentioned there, like, that's what he's hoping to get out of Sunday, and hoping to get out of Sunday week. And what he's got out, I'm sure he's got out of the league himself, is that he thinks in his own head, right, I have 2 or 3 players here now that I can bring on. And as John Kiley's done over the last 3 or 4 years, this is Henry's second year, so I'm sure he's probably at a better stage now than he was this time last year, leading into championship for the likes of those subs, and those 15 aside games, or those A versus B, will tell him an awful lot more than what his league games will tell him. So I'm sure he's in a good position for Sunday in regards to that.
Big question will be, Alan, you referenced there about this, maybe Limerick had that more of an impact off the bench last year in an All-Ireland semi-final, and that's ultimately been Galway's aim throughout the league, to build depth. Have we found depth?
Have we found? Yeah, we've definitely found more than we had last year. You know, and I suppose this is going back to Greg's point there on the subs, and I think and the A versus B, just a point there. I think it's all depending on the manager and how they make those subs feel. And if you don't feel you're valued or you're belonged or you're adding value, then it's easy to check out and get even more frustrated. So the great managers will create a culture that it's a panel and you're really important, and they'll make you feel you have a chance, and they'll continue to try to improve you. Some managers I found, which if you weren't making it, would cast it, would treat you differently than the player than the starting 15. So all the great managers like Kylie and these guys and Mihos would culture that environment where everyone is as important as each other, and everyone's adding value. But going back to, I suppose, Henry's in his second year and he will be in a better place, as Greg said, but unfortunately Limerick are in a far better place than they were this time last year as well. And I thought last year they looked a little bit sluggish and probably got their timing a little bit wrong, but they still obviously won. But they look in cruise control this year, and as Greg said, you know, who they left off last weekend, and they were in second gear really against Kilkenny, and they found 3 or 4. They found, like, young O'Brien and, you know, 3 or 4 more. So in terms of Galway's depth, I suppose time will tell. You know, some had tough leagues campaigns, some of the younger players, some stepped up. I suppose a few of my own club men made a bigger claim than they did this time last year, and Evan seems to be contributing a bit more from play and getting more of game time. Evan Island, TJ Brennan looks like he's slotting in there at cornerback. He had a great Fitzgibbon with UL. As I said, we found Darren Morrissey last year and Jack Grealish, Greg's club man, two really strong, two players with really strong years last year. So yeah, we've found finding a few definitely. I suppose when you come up against the Limericks and the Corks and the Kilkennys, that's when we'll know if the younger players have made the step up or not.
Yeah, it definitely is a scary prospect when you consider what Limerick produced over the weekend, and it's safe to say there's probably a lot more in them after the weekend as well. But with this as well, Wexford on the 22nd, Craig, for the players now, like Everton's building towards Wexford, this has probably been mentioned since the very start of the year on numerous occasions.
Yeah, 100%. Like, and that's the way it should be, and that's what the league should be about. Unless you're the likes of Limerick, that you need to be using this, and like as Alan mentioned, John Kiley is so far ahead. He's whatever term he's in, 5 years or 6 years now. He's got his base and he's got his players there. So Henry's in a different situation. So he needed the league to build and find, as he just mentioned. So this game will be where he's aiming to. They don't have the comfort of John Kiley being able to say we go for the league and the championship. So it'd be the point. And look at it, and the way the championship has gone, like compared to Alan said back in his time there, where you wouldn't have that many games. You have to have one eye in Kilkenny as well, which is the following week. But I know the two eyes will be facing Wexford for the weekend, but at the same time you're thinking quick turnaround. And the way the fixtures are falling for Galway, if they win the two opening games, they're in a great position to start the group. And that's the way to be looking. I know you don't want to look ahead of Wexford, but if they win this weekend, they set themselves up in a great position against Kilkenny next weekend. If they lose, they're under pressure straight away. So that's the reality of it. And I'm sure, look, there's a lot of older, experienced players within the panel as well, and within the team that start Sunday that know all this and have been through all this before. So I don't think it's that new to a lot of them. And I don't know exactly what way the team line out, obviously, for Sunday, but I'm sure there will be 10 or 11 season campaigners that have been through all this before and know the drill. So I don't think they'll be too worried about the fact that it's all like they're putting all their eggs in the basket for the weekend. I think they have to. I think they really need to, and at least they'll be in a great position then against Kilkenny next weekend if they win this weekend.
That game obviously taking place on Saturday, the 22nd of April at 4:30 in Pearse Stadium between Galway and Wexford. I'm going to bring you both in now, lads. Just going to have a go at predicting potentially what this Galway team could be against Wexford. It's safe to say Éanna Murphy now is going to be the goalkeeper against Wexford, I'd say.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. I think he's just probably that bit more experienced than Derek at the minute. Equally, they both have their own good trade points, obviously, but I think Éanna's experience probably just over the last couple of years that he's gained probably just sees him ahead of Derek, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with Greg there. It looks that way, especially with the game time of the league as well, and his experience over the last number of years. So I think they will go for Éanna.
The fullback line as well seem to be towards the latter stages of the league that they're going with. Jack Grealish, Garage Mack at 3, and TJ Brennan. Do you expect management to stick with that?
I think the full back line and the half back line, like I think that's one thing that they've gained, especially over the league, where they now have a situation that, God forbid anything happens to one of them injury wise, that they have cover. Like, so as Alan just mentioned there, like TJ's been brilliant all league. I couldn't see how he could drop him the way he's been playing. But obviously Darren was such a great find last year that you now have an option. I think Jack has had a good league as well. So he has I suppose a bit of a scenario there where he has 4 people for 3 places, and it's a great way to be, and that's where Limerick are. So I think personally he might stick with that full back line you just mentioned, because that's the way he finished out the league, and Darren probably hasn't played much league time, albeit he probably had a great year last year. I know you had a bit of a debate over GMAC full back and Dahi centre back there in one of your pods lately, so I prefer Dahi centre back myself, and I'd leave GMAC full back.
Was that ever thought about in your period when you were with Galway of Dahi at 6?
Yeah, definitely, and he played for 6. He played 6 for Turlock at around that time as well, 17, 18 maybe. So it was, and it often happened in the training game, but at the same time, he was on a curve of 3 or 4 All-Stars in a row at full back. So it would have been very hard to move him. Of course, GMAC basically nearly got Player of the Year in 2017 at 6. So, but at the same time, things evolve, and I think it might be a different curveball for Galway that if you put Dahi centre back and GMAC full back, you offer something more with Dahi going forward and maybe something different to GMAC full back. And of course, in the first game of the league, when GMAC was full back and Conor McDonald, he nullified Everton and he was brilliant, if not man of the match in that day. So I'm sure Henry will be looking at that as well.
How do you see the full back line going, Alan?
Yeah, it's great to say. It's great to have those options now because you've 3-4 great cornerbacks now there in Jack, TJ, and Darren, and obviously I'm presumably looking at maybe Darren out the field, a little bit of wing back. They tried in the league there as well. So you've cover as Greg, which is great, but also it's great that you can interlink or you can interchange GMAC and Dahi as well. Two unbelievably athletic men and great men as well with it and competitors. I always loved Dahi at fullback. He's a safe pair of hands there, and it's inspirational with the big moments. And GMAC at 6. But I think now they've both evolved so much that you can interchange them, and maybe horse for courses, or they can change them if needs be in different scenarios in the games. But it's good to have 2 good central figures there, But I don't know. It depends how they're going in training in terms of the other 2 in the corners. And it could be horses for courses. If they're a bigger full back line, they might try TJ and Darren or the speedy guys, like Rory Connor, or it'll be Jack is the man for him with his speed, and he's like a pocket rocket. He's a great man marker for those type of. But maybe for bigger cornerbacks, maybe they might go. So it's great to have those options, isn't it, Craig? In terms of you'll be more au fait with the defending than me, but. They have options now which they may not have had last year, And like they were last year, they were putting back Port Mannion. Sometimes they were putting back, other players back there. But it's great to have kind of specialist cornerbacks there as well. That and I suppose last year was great to get Jack and Darren. They were huge finds last year, and 2 of them had brilliant seasons. So, going into championship, and then I suppose TJ hasn't been tested at championship, and the pace of the league is different than the pace of the championship. So, it'll be great to see can he step up to that pace as well. I'm sure he'll be well able, but it may take adaptation too. So they may go with experience. I don't know. Depends what they're looking for.
The half-back line is probably the most challenging thing now. What do they do? Because throughout the league, towards the latter stages of it there, Borgman and Dahi Burke, Joseph Cooney going really well. And you throw someone like Fintan Burke back into it now, hasn't played during the league. David Burke's injury now, obviously he's out for the year with cruciate. Do you try and move one of those players maybe who's in the half-back line into midfield now?
Yeah, that's probably the biggest, I'd say, question he has for himself over the last 3 weeks. What do you do in that position? I don't know what Finton's story is in regards to fitness, injury, etc., where he's at the moment. But obviously the half-back line has been probably the most experienced line in the field for you, with Pádraig and Dahi and Joy. But like Tiernan Killeen has also played very well there through the league, and Henry obviously has great time for him. So he's midfield half-back line as well. He's another lad there to throw in, but obviously Finton's experience and the way Finton played last year for Galway, and especially the likes of Limerick, he's the main man for Garage Hegarty there. He kept him quiet always. So this, I suppose it's great. Another the full back line, it's a great headache to have. But as Alan mentioned just there, you'll tell a lot from training, and especially in regards to Finton, because he's so little game time, Henry can only tell, and the management can only tell where he's at. So that might be actually an easy decision right now, but might be a harder decision later on in the year to make. Maybe Finton needs some extra time, but what a headache to have. But as you said with Davy there as well, Davy is going to be such a loss around the middle of the field, maybe, or that maybe he might look at something else there, push one of them out. But then, of course, as we'll get into it there shortly, there is good options in midfield as well. So,
what would you do there, Craig?
See, in regards to where Finton's at, I suppose. Look at it. We'll talk in terms if they're all fit. If they're all fit, I would put Fintan in the half back line and I'd move Joey Cooney up to the half forward line. But that's my own personal opinion. I think I spoke the last time in the podcast here about ball winners, and I just think from our own puck outs that we probably lacked a small bit of ball winners during the league. And like, who better to have as a ball winner than Joey Cooney in the half forward line? And I just think that, albeit I hate when he plays centre back, we played him in the club or anything like that because he's just so good. But at the same time, I just think with Galway, because of the strength we have in the half back line, that I wouldn't mind having the half forward line just to win puck outs and all.
What was you there, Alan?
Yeah, I'm with Greg there on that one. Like, you can put Fintan back in the back then too. If you play 3 and 4, can't he? Back there, if he's fit, because he's a great player. If he's fit and flying it, you definitely have to start him, I think. And I'd be pushing up Joey up front as well, up wing forward, number 10 or 12. He's a great ball winner, great brain. He can link play. He can up and down. His fitness has improved dramatically. His conditioning over the last 5-6 years. And he's up and down that field, and he's great. Like his dad, he's great vision, a great brain, great hurling brain. He can finish as well. You know, I know he can finish from half back line as well. But I think you need that strength up front, especially in that half forward. And if you take Limerick as the blueprint, look at the size of those guys. You know, Hegarty, Hayes when he was there. Lynch and Tom Morrissey and even Cathal O'Neill now, they're huge men. They can all win their own ball. So we need that strength, I think, in the half forward line.
Just at midfield, so probably kind of 3 options jumping out at the minute of Keenan Fahey, Ronan Glennon, and Tom Monaghan, would it be safe to say?
Yeah, I think so. I think Ronnie's come back into it obviously later in the league there, and he's had such a good year last year as well. As was the case at Mono, I think Tom played very well last year, brilliantly last year actually, just come back into the panel. So, and Keenan, of course, who's been half forward line midfield for the league, switching and interchanging a small bit with Tom. So, like, they're the 3 options. And if Cathal was fit, I suppose you could nearly put Cathal in there as a 4th option as well in midfield.
On Cathal being fit, or?
I didn't hear, no, I actually haven't heard. I'm out of the loop now, but no, I like. To me, I think, I personally, if I had the option of everyone being fit as well, I like Cathal midfield. I think he's like very hard to find someone who can take a point like him from out that distance. I think he just offers you something different. But I think Ronnie Glennon, after last year's performance, and of course, I think he had a good league as well when he came back. I'd probably have Ronnie, and I think Tom as well. I think Tom is just that engine for up and down the field. And if we were picking teams today and we're moving Joe Cooney up to half forward, then I'd probably have Tom Mono on midfield with Ronnie Glennon. That's my opinion, anyway.
Should we be doing the same, Alan, or do you see something different?
Yeah, because Ronnie Glennon, I suppose, hasn't played much this year, has he? I don't think he came back towards the latter end of the league.
Clare was the first game, in the league.
Yeah, so it depends how he's going. Obviously, he had a great year last year as well. Another fine from last year, and had a super first season. Yeah, I think Mono's great there as well. He great wing forward too, obviously. But he's a great engine and he's a great finisher, and he's some pace as well. So, and he's a good link man as well. And he's great, and he's that up and down box to box type player. But yeah, I think Cathal Mannion is outstanding midfield as well, and he can score from any distance. But he's a super passer of the ball as well, and he can create so much. And he'd be if you're playing corner forward, he'd be your dream, because he'd put it straight into the breadbasket for you. And with great vision. I suppose it depends on what they're looking for, and it depends on what teams are playing. But I think with the work rate that's needed now in midfield, I think I agree with Greg. Maybe Mono, and if everyone's fit, have Mono and Glenn in midfield, and then have Cathal obviously, and Joe in the half forward line.
So is that Cathal, Joe Cooney, and Conor Cooney in the half forward line then?
I think so.
Yeah, like this is like this again. Like, it's great to have the loads of options, but I think that like if Cathal was fit, I wouldn't be against putting Cathal midfield either with one of those lads. And like you'd have Joe and Connor in the half forward line, and maybe Evan as a Roman centre forward. Like they're the type of options. Keenan, of course, as well. Like if Finton isn't fit, have Keenan wing forward, have Joy wing back. They're the options you're looking at as well. Obviously, I don't know if Cahill's back or not. Just in an overall scenario, if you're in an Ireland final in the morning, I'd probably like to have Cahill midfield if he's fit. But in regards to Sunday's game, I think that, like, I'm probably sitting on the fence here small with all these different options, but I just think that
it depends what type of game plan you're trying to play as well.
Yeah.
And depends on the opposition, how they're set up, and especially the forward, and even midfield, half forward, they're so interchangeable now. You can be changing them in and out, and they're in and out anyway, covered for each other. So it's great that players who can play, who can interchange so easily as well, I think. But yeah, look, I think it just depends on the form, first of all. It depends on fitness, second of all, and depends what type of game plan you want to implement. Second of all, you could play Carl Mannion 13 and have him come out floating as a third midfielder as well, depending on the setup you wanted to play. Or Evan in 13 and out floating as well, and roaming, because they can finish from distance. You need to finish from distance these days, and maybe particularly against Wexford if they set up defensively as well.
Yeah, I think Cahill plays that role very well. Like if they're playing Connor and Bino inside in full forward line, that Cahill comes out as a third man midfielder and he kind of roams, like, and he can shoot points from 70-80 yards. I wouldn't be against that either, and having Ron in midfield or whatever. I think that'd be a really good way to do it, and have Connor Cooney and Joy Cooney in the wings, and have Evan centre forward. That'd be another way of doing it. Like, obviously Ryan and Connor are so dangerous inside, and they have been so dangerous over the last 2 or 3 years. That'd be probably my strongest as well.
Yeah, the full forward line, I was just about to say, Alan, it kind of picks itself with the former Evan Ireland, Conor Whelan and Frankie Cannon.
Yeah, and you can move Wheelos into forward as well. There's options there, but he's so strong. But you prefer to keep him close to goal without a doubt, because of his directness and his finishing and his ball winning in there as well is vital. As you can't, like Aaron Gillan, you need that focal point inside for the long out ball as well. If they're not playing through the lines, and he brings great movement. Stephen Bryan gives great movement inside as well. They're very pacey, and that's where maybe Evan might go as a floater or a roam, and leave that space inside as well. And he can get, when he gets on ball as well, he can finish from any angle. Evan. So they seem to be the form players inside, definitely. Going on all we can go on is on the league, and obviously they're they're hugely dangerous, the three of them inside.
Yeah, I think Kevin Cooney as well. Like, he's had a great league, and I think that, like, he'll probably gain a lot from this year, and, like, he probably hasn't the experience right now. Maybe he will start Sunday, but or Saturday, but maybe just.
I really like Kevin Cooney as well. Like, and then they might say, they might just go one free taker, because they're two free takers on the field with Evan and Connor, so they might just say, again, depending on the style they want to play, they might go with young Cooney inside, another super direct player, super hand, and can win those big high dirty balls as well. And I think he's a one big find this year. Hopefully, I'd love to see him have a great get some game time and make a big impact.
It's ultimately what you need, though, isn't it? With this round robin, like the five games they're going to have, is it in 6 or 7 weeks?
Yeah, you're going to get injuries as well, and you're going to game after game after game. And look, if you get injured, put a hammer, you're gone for the whole Leinster probably, and potentially for the All Ireland series, depending on the severity of it. But a couple of injuries could really throw some curveballs in there. But you want to keep your key players fit. If we lose some of our key players, we could be in trouble, because with David injured now and one or two more, towards the latter stage of the career, that experience is vital.
It's almost like we were saying on the podcast, Craig, when David Burke initially got injured, he's probably nearly like a coach now to this team, because you can be sure David Burke is 100% staying involved with this team.
Yeah, and you need him around as well, because the experience that he has, and he's been around the setup now a long time. So And he's a great talker, and he's a great motivator in the dressing room. And like has been the case with the last 2-3 years, Henry's brought on so many young players, and we've mentioned 2 or 3 of them there. And there's a lot more we didn't mention there, like Liam Collins and a few more of those younger lads coming through that. Like even Gavin Lee there from Alan's club, like he's
great as well.
Yeah, like exactly. Like they're the type of lads that need like Davey in their ear just before they're about to come on, or just before the game starts, or in the dressing room beforehand, or during the warm up that he might need a roar or a tap in the back. And like I'm sure he'll be around to do that. Like he knows no different, and that's just the way he is. So, but Alan mentioned it there, like that. Like we've already lost probably one of our main experienced players, so we can't afford to lose anymore. And I think that's where we're at the minute as a county. Maybe in 2 or 3 years' time we might be a bit different when we've a few more younger lads, a bit more seasoned. But Limerick probably were able to afford to lose 1 or 2 players, and had lost 1 or 2 players the last couple of years, and still have enough in the tank. Whereas we have lost Davy, and we probably can't lose anymore. So we need a bit of luck as well along the way in regards to injuries. Even the likes of Cahill, Fenton, lads that we haven't seen much of that are now injured, we need them to get back in full flow. And so we need them against Wexford, we need them against Kilkenny, and we need them against Dublin the last game, not putting down any of the Antrim or Westmeath. But it's just it's the way it is, and it's the way Championship has gone, that you can't afford, as Alan said, if you get a hamstring injury, you could be out for the whole into Championship. If it's a bad injury, you mightn't even be back for that Ireland, and as we've learned down through the years. So unless you're Limerick, I think you need a bit of luck as well along the way.
Just with that, before we do finish, lads, the under-20s obviously were beaten last weekend to Dublin, 119 to 117. They're in a round robin series, so they played the 3 games. They've Kilkenny and Wexford to finish. They're going to be in a quarter-final no matter where, but I suppose the way they finish, that'll matter on their seeding and depends who they play from the other group, but they're guaranteed the Leinster quarter-final anyway, so there's definitely no need to panic there. But the minors, 3 out of 3 for guests into the knockout stages now, and from a couple of clips, even of just seeing them, Alan, your brother Mark's obviously involved in the backroom team, and they've looked really, really impressive in the games they've played so far.
Yeah, they were like Fergal Healy there put together a good backroom team. Joey Canning and James Scahill is there, Marcus and Proctor, he's a great coach as well, and Eamon Cleary. So they've got a pretty strong backroom team there, which is great to see. A lot of former players, and yeah, they have some exceptional talent coming through there with, and they were very lucky last year, and they were quite a young team last year, and Aaron Island is an exceptional talent as well, and it's great to see. And we've a young Sean Murphy there, the captain from Clarenbridge, one of the best defenders I've ever seen. From a young fella, he's just cheek tough and tiger, brilliant defender, inspirational young man. And Aaron up front is everyone knows what he can do, but he's tall, he's got it all. He's tall, he's like a gazelle in pace wise. He's aggressive, he's tough. He's well able to handle himself because he's used to getting so much, double marking and a bit of temper as well, and a bit of intimidation. So he's well able to handle himself mentally, and he's an unbelievable appetite to work. Some of these people who are really talented don't have the work ethic, but he has this insatiable appetite to improve himself. So excited to see where he can go in the game, and not any pressure on him, but it would be great it's exciting for Galway to have a player of his potential, let's just say, in our ranks. And there's many more there with him as well. He's great. He's great colleagues there, and they should go deep into the championship based on what we've seen and based on some of their form from last year as well. I know they've lost players from last year, but they'll go through the guys that started last year, starting this year as well. So it's and it's great to get into Leinster, isn't it? That like they get the games to develop the players. I know Paul Belly was very strong on that, and it's great they got it over the line. Fair play to them for that, for the work they put in behind the scenes at the Congress. So it's only good for Galway hurling that these players get exposed to more championship games for the development, and the man will learn a lot from these games. Sometimes it's too late to learn in previous formats because you're gone. Because you've only won one game and you're just a quarterfinal or semi-final. So they'll learn a lot about the players, and they should end up, when it comes to the the championship or the knockout phases with their strongest team and their strongest, I suppose, game plan as well. And it's only great for the players. They deserve that in terms of the commitment and the training that goes into every team now these days, that you get game time, because that's what you want with the training ratio, you know.
Leinster's obviously been a massive positive to get in and for the development for these players, as you mentioned there, Alan. But Craig, even just watching a few of the clips, but the clips that really are going around of Aaron Ireland bagging these 21-metre frees, like it's almost like a young Joe Canning scoring goals at minor level when you're watching them.
Yeah, I seen that clip of the 21, right? There's enough of top spin, I'd say, to put a hole in the back of the net, so there was. But no, look at it. I've seen him last year as well. I watched 1 or 2 games on YouTube there live when he was playing last year, and I didn't see any game this year, just only the clips as well. And look, he looks the real deal, and like he's very similar to Evan in ways, just with a bit of height, and probably just like has all the skill as well, just like Evan. And look, it's great to see all these young lads coming through, and the backroom team that they have there is unbelievable, as Alan just mentioned. And I spoke to James and I spoke to Joe about them, and they're really impressed about the quality. And I was talking to Jonah Donnan here the last day, and he was saying that it's 7 or 8 under 16s as well with them. So there is, a good bunch for next year as well. And it's just great seeing Galway hurling. As Alan mentioned there, it's great to see them getting so many games as well at that age, because like that'll just bring them on massively. And it's great to see, and fair play to Paul Bellew for pushing that, because it was what was needed for years. Because it's not fair, like, and the young lads are back training since December, January as well, and they need to be getting as many games as they can, not just the 2 or 3 games, and probably caught them out the last 2 or 3 years, to be honest, not having as many games. So they've had a great start, and it's great to see, and hopefully we see Aaron Ireland banging in them 21s. I don't know what Alan's going to do in a few years with all the county penalties, because it's not Clarebridge that's county penalties, and Clarebridge has coming up. So
you need to win something soon. No pressure before this year, so there is a.
Yeah, no, it's great to see, in all fairness.
No, it's a massive few weeks ago hurling now to really look forward to, between the minors and 20s and seniors, obviously getting underway on the 22nd of April, and then 4 games after that, Kilkenny, Westmeath, Antrim and Dublin. So championship is really on the horizon. But that's all on our show for today. Thanks a million to Craig and Alan for coming on.
Cheers, bud.
We are now delighted to announce our second sponsor of the podcast. Harper Finlay are a professional service recruitment company operating nationwide, and are dedicated to helping people find their dream job.